It's not enough to have an opinion. Your opinion also has to be the right one, according to a lot of us. Hi, I'm Nick. This is 10 Minutes with Nick, and this is 10 minutes on opinions. Now, first things first, what we are going to establish. And we're going to agree on this. And because I'm talking to myself and a microphone, you literally can't disagree with me. Although if you do disagree with me, feel free to drop a comment. It's been happening more and more frequently, and I enjoy interacting with the comments. Sometimes I just enjoy reading the comment. But opinions are not fact. I know. It is hard to accept that. But opinions are not fact. Meaning, opinions are subjective. What does subjective mean? It means that it is not objective. It is the opposite of objective. Objective, in a nutshell, is just, it's true, no matter what way you look at it. If I jump, let's say, the acceleration by which I will be pulled back to the ground when I am on Earth is 9.81 meters per second squared. You can get more exact than that, but that's the objective truth. Now, certainly, can I have an opinion about, I don't know, you really can't have an opinion on gravity. It's there. You can't really argue with it unless you want to argue that somehow there's a hamster in a wheel generating gravity, but that would be opinion, and might I add, wild speculation as to the ability of hamsters. Hamsters, not hamsters. I say hamsters a lot. I mean to say hamster. Anyways, gravity is a fact. You know what is not a fact? Who the best quarterback in the NFL is. I bring this up because this is the time of year when NFL awards are given out. There is no objective way to give out awards in sports. Let me repeat that again. There is no objective way to give out most awards in sports. Unless your award is, for example, he who has scored the most points during the season. You can count that. But then you might say even that is subjective because, well, what about the other guys on the field? The offensive linemen cannot be eligible for that award, but they arguably have the most to do with the scoring of the points. What I'm saying is, we get very serious about our opinions in football, and sports in general. We get very serious about them, and we pretend that our opinion, the one that we hold, is the only objective one. Now, my subjective opinion is that Joshua Patrick Allen is the league's MVP at least since the year 2020. Definitely only since the year 2020. He was a quarterback on a learning curve in 2019, 2018, and 2017. I think he entered the league in 2018. Excuse me. I believe him to be the best quarterback because he had the most total offensive yards. He did not throw for the most yards, but if you combined his throwing and rushing stats, he had the most yards. He also threw for over 4,000 yards. In terms of quarterback production, we're not exactly talking about a scrub with his arm. He didn't throw for like 2,000 yards and then run for 1,500. He is more quarterback than running back, but his total yards offensively were the most. Same thing with total touchdowns. And his touchdown number was absurdly higher than the next person. Like it wasn't like it was like a 1 or 2 offensive touchdown difference. Now, granted, you may say reasonably that there's more to the MVP. You may say the MVP has to be on a winning team. Well, he was on the 2 seed in the playoffs. Not only the 2 seed, but a team that was all but dead at the midway point. Now, granted, this again, What I'm doing is illustrating the subjectivity of this sort of opinion. In football, this is quite harmless. It sets up some occasionally violent arguments, and some people take it too seriously, but in football, it's relatively harmless. The problem is we've allowed subjectivity to sort of creep into areas where it really doesn't belong. Just doesn't belong there. When it comes to things like math, it's very difficult to have a subjective opinion without sort of undermining the concept of what math is. You can certainly have a subjective opinion about the best way to learn math and engage with math. That is a fine opinion. But, and I don't know how widespread this is, right? But I did see somebody say that 2 plus 2 no longer equals 4. That's wildly incorrect unless you renamed the Arabic numeral 4 and you gave it a new name, then technically speaking, yes, you'd be correct. The hieroglyphic symbol that we use to represent the number 4, you can absolutely change the name of that. But the total 2 plus 2, when you put them down, must still equal that number. You can insist they don't, but the system we have in place will tell you that they do. And you may say, the system we have in place, I don't like the system we have in place. Well, not liking something does not overthrow the objectivity of it. For example, I don't like the fact that the sun rises in the east. I would much prefer it to rise in the west. Okay. I could get everybody together and I could insist that we change the name of east and west, and that would solve the problem. But why? It would be a useless change. It would be a distinction with no difference. And that's where we're coming to, is that, we're getting this idea in our heads that our opinions can trump the facts that are in front of us. And the reason that we agree on some objective truths is to allow us to have a base to operate from when we are arguing our opinions. It actually allows us to have much more complex and much more interesting opinions because we can agree on a set of data. Okay, we're talking about this. Right. I believe that the interpretation of this leads to this conclusion. I believe it leads to this conclusion. But you can compare and contrast, and you have the raw data to actually have that discussion. What we're doing nowadays is we're actually saying, no, my opinion is so correct, it actually transforms the raw data. The raw data that you're working with is the wrong raw data, even though it's data and doesn't change. And it's not don't get me wrong, it's not any one political side doing this. Both sides are equally as guilty of this. I'm speaking from the center. And just saying that the reason we have such extremes on both sides is because nobody can agree on the basic set of facts. For example, if we are to discuss a crime, the basic fact is not a criminal broke in. That's an opinion. The basic fact is somebody smashed a storefront at roughly this time and took a necklace. That is the event that we know occurred. We can't even agree on the event anymore. No longer can we agree on that event. That's how bad it is. That is dangerous in a society that relies on fact to make determinations of justice. Because then we get into a courtroom and our juries are no longer people who can even agree on facts as presented to them. That is a huge problem. It's not a problem in sports. Have all of the subjective opinions you want in sports. That's fine. It has no bearing on important things in life, except for gambling, which I've talked about, is another real problem. But focus on how much of a problem this is when you rely on fact to make determinations of justice, and fair determinations of justice. This is how we end up with all the problems. This is how we end up with all the problems in the court systems and how we end up with disproportionate jailings of different ethnic and racial groups. I'm out of time, but as you can see, I've built the argument. But remember, this is my opinion. You can feel free to argue with it. That's what I believe to be true. You're welcome to argue with me. Like and subscribe if you'd like to, and happy to have an argument with you anytime. Leave me a comment. And if you don't like what I just said, well, that's your opinion. I'm Nick. This is 10 Minutes with Nick. Have a great day.